We're going to continue to connect Project 2025, Trump, and his allies are problematic. This is from Politico. Trump allies prepare to infuse Christian nationalism in second administration. They've already been there, but now they are very blatant with it and they are spelling it out. Spearheading the effort is Russell Voigt, president of the Center for Renewing America, part of a conservative consortium preparing for Trump's return to power. An influential think tank close to Donald Trump is developing plans to infuse Christian nationalist ideas in his administration should the former president return to power, according to documents obtained by Politico. Spearheading the effort is Russell Voigt, who served as Trump's director of Office of Management and Budget during his first term and has remained close to him. Voigt, who is frequently cited as a potential chief of staff in the second Trump White House, is president of the Center for Renewing America think tank, a leading group in a conservative consortium preparing for a second Trump term. Christian nationalists in America believe that the country was founded as a Christian nation and that Christian values should be prioritized throughout the government and public life. As the country has become less religious and more diverse, Voigt has embraced the idea that Christians are under assault and has spoken of policies he might pursue in response. One document crafted by the CRA staff and fellows include a list of top priorities for CRA in a second Trump term. Christian nationalism is one of those bullet points. Others include invoking the Insurrection Act on day one, to quash protests, and refusing to spend authorized congressional funds on unwanted projects, a practice banned by lawmakers in the Nixon era. CRA's work fits into a broader effort by conservative, MAGA-leaning organizations to influence a future Trump White House. Two people familiar with the plans, who were granted anonymity to discuss internal matters, said that Voigt hopes his proximity and regular contact with the former president, he and Trump speak at least once a month, according to one of the people, will elevate Christian nationalism as a focal point in the second Trump term. The documents obtained by Politico do not outline specific Christian nationalist policies, but Voigt has promoted a restrictionist immigration agenda, saying a person's background doesn't define who can enter the U.S., but rather citing biblical teachings, whether that person accepted Israel's God, laws, and understanding of history. Voigt has a close affiliation with Christian nationalist William Wolf, a former Trump administration official who has advocated for overturning same-sex marriage, ending abortion and reducing access to contraceptives. They want to reduce access to contraceptive and end abortion. Please make that make sense. They don't want women to be able to control their reproductive on the front end or the back end because they just want to control women. Voigt, who declined to comment, is advising Project 2025, a governing agenda that would usher in one of the most conservative executive branches in modern American history. The effort is made up of a constellation of conservative groups run by Trump allies who've constructed a detailed plan to dismantle or overhaul key agencies in a second term. Among other principles, the project's mandate for leadership states that freedom is defined by God, not man. That article was written back in January. This article was written in June. The theocratic blueprint for Trump's next term. How the Christian nationalist vanguard would pursue unprecedented power over all the branches of government. Look at this bombastic picture of Trump. This definitely looks like what Trump is probably like. This article is part of Project 2025's The Plot Against America, a nation's special issue devoted to unpacking the right's vast and chilling program for a second Trump term. The first pages of Project 2025 mandate for leadership invoke the Beltway's axiom that personnel is policy. If that's the case, readers should pay especially close attention to the handiwork of Russell Voigt. Voigt served as Donald Trump's director of, we already talked about this part, so we already talked about the fact that he is overseeing Project 2025, 1,000 employees in 30 separate task groups under his aegis. He also contributed to a central chapter of Project 2025's blueprint for a second Trump term. So his section is under the Executive Office of the President of the United States. In it, Voigt lays out the case for unleashing untrammeled executive power from the maw of a sprawling federal bureaucracy that, contrary to the intent of the Constitution, is carrying out its own policy plans and preferences, or worse yet, the policy plans and preferences of a radical, supposedly woke faction of the country. Voigt proposes to curb the excesses of this dangerous administrative elite by expanding the prerogatives of presidential authority in every facet of federal government's operations. Right-wing power mongers have long expounded the theory of a unitary executive as the most durable, efficient, and potent way to achieve a policy agenda that remains deeply unpopular with the American electorate. Yet Voigt seeks to transform that theory into a comic book plot arc with SHIELD-style rescue mission to redeem a public besieged by sinister bureaucratic scheming and administrative power grabs at every turn. The overall situation is constitutionally dire, unsustainably expensive, and in urgent need of repair, he writes. Nothing less than survival of self-governance in America is at stake. So give the executive so much more power, and add that to the fact that the Supreme Court has given blanket immunity to the president, sounds like a prescription for a kingship or a monarchy. And in this case, it would be a theocracy backed by Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, and the rest of these Christo-fascists. This sounds terrible, and this is the reason why I will continue to talk about Project 2025 and its players. This is in Project 2025, talking about who the authors of this project is, and Russ Voigt is right there. He is the founder and president of the Center for Renewing America, a longtime conservative leader on Capitol Hill. Russ served the president's cabinet as director of office management. So you can see right here, he has put it in there, his connection. This is in Project 2025. You see the title right here, Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise. His name is authored right there. There is no way to disconnect Russ Voigt, Project 2025, and Trump. Even if he tries to disassociate from them, there's no way to disconnect. All right, jump in the comments. Let me know what you think about these two articles. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. So I'm continuing to talk about Project 2025. Now I want to talk about how they want to destroy the Department of Education. It is no secret that most red states rank the lowest in education. So they are literally looking to destroy education, and we've already seen the headlines on how they are looking to put the Bible into school, not just Sunday school, but into public schools. Let's look at their mission. They say federal education policy should be limited, and ultimately the federal Department of Education should be eliminated. When power is exercised, it should empower students and families, not governments. In our pluralistic society, families and students should be free to choose from a diverse set of school options and learning environments that best fit their needs. Our post-secondary institutions should also reflect such diversity, with room for not only traditional liberal arts colleges and research universities, but also faith-based institutions, career schools, military academies, and lifelong learning programs. Elementary and secondary education policy should follow the path outlined by Milton Friedman in 1955, wherein education is publicly funded, but education decisions are made by families. Ultimately, every parent should have the option to direct his or her child's share of education funding through an education savings account, ESA, funded overwhelmingly by state and local taxpayers, which would empower parents to choose a set of education options that meet their child's unique needs. So basically taking funding from public schools, and this is just another way of saying the voucher program. Project 2025 has a lot of words, so I'm skipping some of the history that they were talking about and getting to some of their bullet points. So it says, as the next administration executes its work, it should be guided by a few core principles, including advancing education freedom, empowering families to choose among a diverse set of education options is key to reform and improved outcomes, and it can be achieved without establishing a new federal program. For example, portability of existing federal education spending to fund families directly or allowing federal tax credits to encourage voluntary contributions to K through 12 education savings account managed by charitable nonprofits could significantly advance education choice. That sounds like vouchers. And who are the managing charitable nonprofits? Probably somebody conservative. Providing education choice for federal children. Congress has special responsibility to children who are connected to military families, who live in DC, or who are members of sovereign tribes. Responsibility for serving these students should be housed in agencies that are already serving these families. Restoring state and local control over education funding. As Washington begins to downsize its intervention in education, existing funding should be sent to states as grants over which they have full control, enabling states to put federal funding toward any lawful education purpose under state law. And we already know that some of these states are changing laws to reflect that the Bible should be taught. So that right there is also problematic. Treating taxpayers like investors in federal student aid. Taxpayers should expect their investments in higher education to generate economic productivity. When federal government lends money to individuals for post-secondary education, taxpayers should expect those borrowers to repay. Now, we already know that many corporations get tax write offs, and we already know that many people get to write off their debts via bankruptcy. But for some strange reason, they do not believe that students should be allowed to wipe any of this debt, even as costs for school keep going up exponentially. Protecting the federal student loan portfolio from predatory politicians. The new administration must end the practice of acting like the federal student loan portfolios a campaign fund to curry political support and votes. The new administration must end abuses in the loan forgiveness programs. Borrowers should be expected to repay their loans. Now, that is problematic because some people do go into certain fields knowing that, if they work a certain amount in a certain field, that their loans will be wiped. And this is just showing that maybe they do not want people to go into these directions or these careers or whatever. And this is going to harm folks. Safeguarding civil rights. Yeah, right. Enforcement of civil rights should be based on proper understanding of those laws, rejecting gender ideology and critical race theory. Exactly. That is what they have been talking about. They do not want to talk about gender at all, and they keep on putting in critical race theory because for whatever reason they do not want to teach proper history with all its implications. Stopping executive overreach. Congress should set policy, not presidents through pen and phone executive orders, and not agencies through regulations and guidance. National emergency declarations should expire absent express congressional authorization within 60 days after the date of declaration. Congress moves slow as molasses. Making it about Congress setting policy is going to be detrimental because it takes a lot to get federal laws passed. So this sounds very problematic also. All right, so it says bolstered by an ever growing cabal of special interests that thrive off of federal largesse, the infrastructure that supports America's costly federal intervention in education from early childhood through graduate school has entrenched itself. But unlike the public sector bureaucracies, public employee unions, and the higher education lobby, families and students do not need a Department of Education to learn, grow, and improve their lives. It is critical that the next administration tackle this entrenched infrastructure. So, like I said, there is a lot of words here. You can spend some time reading this, but I'm going to skip a little. I'm going to skip down towards the bottom. Program and office prioritization within the department. Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, OESE. The OESE is comprised of 36 programs ranging from Title I, Part A of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and Impact Aid to programs for Native American students and the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program. Reduce the number of programs managed by OESE and transfer some remaining programs to other federal agencies. It sounds like they are trying to axe money for those people. Transfer Title I, Part A, which provides federal funding for lower income school districts, to the Department of Health and Human Services, specifically the Administration for Children and Families. It should be administered as a no strings attached formula block grant. No strings attached. Transfer the vocational rehabilitation grants for Native American students to the Bureau of Indian Education. Phase out earmarks for a variety of special institutions as originally envisioned. To the extent that OSERS supports federal efforts to enforce our laws against discrimination of individuals with disabilities, those assets should be moved to the Department of Justice along with the Office for Civil Rights, because obviously the DOJ and the Office for Civil Rights don't have enough to do. All right. Office for Post-Secondary Education. The next administration should work with Congress to eliminate or move OPE programs to the ETA at the Department of Labor. These people are wild. They really want to take all of these existing programs and move them. And I'm sure that these other people are already overworked. So all it's going to do is just lap on more work for overworked people. This makes no sense to me. Funding to institutions should be block granted and narrowed to historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, and tribally controlled colleges. Move programs deemed important to our national security interests to the Department of State. Institute of Education Sciences, move ED's Statistical Office and National Commission for Education Statistics to the Department of Commerce, Census Bureau. Office of Federal Student Aid. The next administration should completely reverse the student loan federalization of 2010 and work with Congress to spin off the FSA and its student loan obligations to a new government corporation with professional governance and management. As I'm reading through this and you guys are listening, do you guys see how problematic some of this could be? Eliminating this department that has thousands upon thousands of people and then lumping all of their work onto departments that are already busy with their own work just seems like they are really trying to destroy the education in this country. But you guys go ahead and weigh in on your thoughts about the Department of Education and some of these plans.